The first thing Gran Betty ever said to me about money wasn't comforting, it was confronting. She didn't even look up at first, just stirred her tea, slow, steady. Tink, tink, tink. Then she said, "Darling, money doesn't disappear, it sneaks." And I laughed. I actually laughed, because at the time, I thought money disappeared on big things. Rent, bills, life. I didn't realize it was the small things, the quiet ones, the forgettable ones, that were doing the real damage. Until the week she proved it to me. She said, "For 7 days, you're going to do something most people avoid their entire lives." I asked her what. She slid a little notebook across the table. "Tell the truth." That was it. No budgets, no restrictions, no guilt, just truth. Every pound, every £1.50, every, it doesn't count. Write it down. And I remember thinking, this won't change anything. But by day 3, something happened that I still can't forget. I added it all up. Not roughly, not in my head, properly. And I just stared at the number. It wasn't dramatic spending. It was worse. It was forgettable spending. Things I couldn't even remember buying. And Gran Betty didn't react. She just nodded, like she'd seen it 1,000 times before. "Darling," she said gently, "that's not spending, that's leaking." If you've never done this before, I want you to understand something. This part alone changes people, because you cannot fix what you refuse to face. So here's the first system she ever taught me. The 7-Day Truth Audit. No filters, no rounding, no excuses. You don't change anything yet. You just observe. Because as she'd say, awareness before action. Always. And here's what most people don't expect. The first few days are easy. It even feels a bit satisfying. You feel in control. But then, something shifts. By the middle of the week you start catching yourself. Mid-scroll, mid-click, mid-justification. That moment where your thumb is hovering over "buy now." And you pause. That pause? That's power. Gran Betty used to say, "The moment between impulse and action is where your future is decided." And this is where most people lose. Not because they're bad with money, because they're moving too fast. So she slowed everything down. No decision at full speed, she'd say. That's how they take your money without asking. And then she introduced the rule that changed everything for me. The 24-hour rule. But she didn't call it that. She called it sleeping on the truth. If I wanted anything at all, I had to write it down and put it in her biscuit tin. And then I had to wait. No exceptions. And the first time I did it, I was convinced I still wanted the thing. Absolutely convinced. But the next day, I didn't even care. And she smiled, just slightly, and said, "Urgency is rarely truth, darling. It's usually marketing." That line alone is worth remembering. Urgency is rarely truth. So here's the second system. Write it. Wait on it. Revisit it. If it still matters, you'll know. If it doesn't, you've just saved yourself money without effort. Now here's where it gets deeper, because around day 4, something uncomfortable shows up. Gran Betty called it the itch. That restless feeling. You're not buying as much, but now you feel it. The boredom, the stress, the little emotional dips. And suddenly, buying doesn't feel like spending. It feels like relief. That's when she asked me the question I now ask myself almost daily. "Darling, are you buying a mood or a thing?" And I want you to really sit with that. Because most of the time, It's not about the item, it's about escape. A £15 takeaway after a long day. A £22.50 gadget during a dull afternoon. A £500 treat, because you feel like you deserve something. And maybe you do deserve something. But Gran Betty would lean in and say, then give yourself what you actually need, not what distracts you for 10 minutes. Another one of hers. You can't shop your way out of a feeling, darling. That one stings a bit. But it's true. So here's the third system. Name the feeling before you spend. Not after. Before. Because once you name it, bored, stressed, tired, lonely, it loses its power, and the purchase loses its disguise. And then came the lesson that changed how I see every single price tag. Gran Betty didn't believe in money as numbers, she believed in money as time. So every time I picked something up, she'd ask, how many hours of your life is that? At first it annoyed me, but then I started calculating it. And suddenly, everything looked different. That's not £30, darling, she'd say. That's 3 hours of your life sat behind that glowing screen. Is that plastic gadget worth 3 hours of your heartbeat? And sometimes the answer was yes. But most of the time, it wasn't. And that's when she'd say, spend where it matters. Ruthlessly ignore the rest. That's the fourth system. Convert price into life. Because money comes back. Time doesn't. By day 5, something surprising happens. You stop feeling restricted. And you start feeling clear. Because now you can see it. Which purchases actually added something to your life? And which ones just passed through? Gran Betty had a way of simplifying things. Everything is either feeding you or draining you. She called them true wealth and vampire spends. True wealth stays. It supports your life, you remember it. Vampire spends? Gone. No impact, no memory, just less money. A full cupboard and an empty account is not abundance, darling. So here's the fifth system. Categorize your spending. Not by category like food or clothes. By impact. Did it matter? Would you buy it again? Did it improve your life beyond the moment? If not, it's a leak. And here's the part that changes everything. You don't need to fix all of it, just the bottom 20%. The most forgettable, the most pointless. Because that's where the real leak is. And once you plug that, everything shifts. More breathing room, less stress, more control. Gran Betty always said, wealth isn't built in grand gestures, it's protected in quiet decisions. And then came her final lesson. The one I didn't fully understand until much later. She said, darling, don't just stop the leak, redirect the flow. Because saving money without purpose doesn't last. It just builds pressure until you spend again. So every pound you don't spend, give it a job, move it, name it, use it intentionally. Money needs direction, she'd say, or it wanders off. So here's the sixth system. Capture the savings. Every £10 you didn't spend, every £20 you paused, move it somewhere. A separate account, a goal, an investment. Because if you don't, it will sneak away again. And yes, money doesn't disappear. It sneaks. By the end of that week, I didn't just spend less. I understood more. And that changed everything. Because now, every time I feel that impulse, I hear her voice. Calm. Certain. Pause. Is it truth? Or noise? Is it a mood? Or a thing? Is it worth your hours? And most importantly, will this matter next week? And if the answer is no, I let it go. Now let me ask you something. If you kept going exactly as you are right now, same habits, same small spends, same justifications. Where would you be in a year? And more importantly, would you even remember what you spent it on? Or would it all just sneak away? But imagine the other version. The one where you notice, where you pause, where you choose, where your money stays where you put it. That's the difference Gran Betty gave me. Not restriction, control, clarity, peace. So here's what I want you to do. Start your 7-day truth audit. No perfection, just honesty, and see what shows up. Because that number you discover, that's your turning point. If this made you pause, even for a second, like this video, it helps more people hear the things most of us were never taught. Share it with someone who always says, "I don't know where my money goes." Because now you know, it sneaks. And subscribe, because Gran Betty has a lifetime of wisdom like this, and you don't want to miss what she says next. And if you're serious about changing your relationship with money, go and watch Gran Betty's Money Wisdom series right now. Because this is just the beginning. And the sooner you learn to catch what sneaks, the more you get to keep.